I gotta wait. How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
Welcome to the shed, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
I'm Dreme, a black woman with many beautiful interconnecting identities. A few I will name at this moment as we get started on this podcast journey together. A Bostonian, born and raised in the inner city, Dorchester and Roxbury neighborhoods, to a teenage single mother who has my whole heart. An educator, I've been working with youth and children since my teenage years, and formally, I have been teaching almost a decade now. That's wild to think about. An entrepreneur, I am the founder of The Chair, a black and brown centered tech platform dedicated to supporting people on their hair journey, where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a more joyous experience. I have a workable site, my prototype. It took me 2 years to build, and now I'm on this adventure that you're currently on with me. My goal for this podcast is to share stories, black stories, educator stories, entrepreneurship stories, and hair stories. I want you to leave each episode with the opportunity to gain new insight, just a glimpse into my world or the worlds that are featured on my podcasts, a little chuckle during your day or night, possibly a little anger to encourage you to advocate for justice, and hope to continue learning and dreaming. So come in and listen to the beautiful voices in the chair as they share their stories, starting with me.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Cindy. Cindy, can you please introduce yourself?
Oh dear, introduce myself. My name is Cindy Weeks Bradley. I am getting comfortable nowadays with calling myself a healer. I started out in the field of pretty much a knowing and learning and experiencing, and ended up going into education. Was there for directly in schools for about 20 or so years. I left school and worked for the Department of Ed for a couple of years. And now I'm adjacent to education, supporting educators across the country and even internationally through my business called The Equity Process. And I also have a compassionate program that I run with compassion and mindfulness and Reiki and that kind of thing. So there's also a healing center to the work that I do.
I'm so excited for this conversation. So Cindy and I met when I was interning at the Department of Education. I went to business school, and this was in the summer. They're like, you need to get an internship with different experiences. And because I was an educator in business school, I was trying to find that intersection between business, education, thinking about DEI, also thinking about policy. And then this internship showed up on my LinkedIn. It was like super bare at like 2 a.m. and I applied. And it was supposed to just be 3 months. And then I ended up meeting Cindy. In my first meeting, I like log on and everybody is arguing about microaggressions in this email chain. And I'm like, what is going on here right now? And everybody was just so confused and not wanting to take accountability, all this stuff. You just kept going back to the point being like, if we cannot get it together in this space, how can we get it together for the kids? Like, it was always very clear about if adults can't get it together, how are we supposed to support schools and teachers and things like that? And that was like my first core memory of working at the state. And it like took apart all of the fluffiness and the red tape that I had in my brain about like, well, if you work at the state, you must be super organized and things must run really clearly. And then that was my first meeting.
That's funny. I think we were super organized, but I think we were a little too organized. Just recently, I started talking about communication and over communicating. And I think we were probably over organized because you're putting a bunch of very strong minds and strong willed people in a room to do the best work possible. and the organizational skills needed to be on par. But the piece that we'd often forget, and even now in other spaces that I'm in, we keep forgetting our personal values. We don't leave them at the door when we show up for work. Like they're with us all the time. So for me, it was like, yeah, we're in this space and yeah, we're organized and yeah, we're here to do some super great work, but it's not going to be super if we're pretending like our personal values, our biases, our lived experiences do not exist for the sake of a project that needs to be completed or, a law that needs to be followed. So it was very important to me that when we're in a space, we just kept it real and still maintained integrity and do the best job that we could possibly do for the Commonwealth on behalf of all students in the Commonwealth. And I do mean all, including the ones that are marginalized, both for whatever reasons. Sometimes it's just people don't understand, and sometimes very willful marginalization. So I wanted to be sure that if I had a voice at the table, and I did, I would use it to continue to heal some of the work that I saw, or areas in schools that I saw needed to be healed.
Did you always want to go this route into education? Was this always a plan for you?
I think policy was always a plan for me. I might not have known how to get there, but policy was always very important to me. Even being a school-based administrator or being a teacher or being a manager or being a dean, policy that included student voices and that was student-centered and was for the betterment of students was always, and families, always, always, always important to me because I saw it as safety. So going to the state was just another avenue to address policy. And I'm telling you, I was in a lucky position. I was in a very lucky position because I was liked. And as much as, I ran my big mouth, people respected me and they adored me. And for that reason alone, I was able to tap into other areas within the state outside of my core department and really jump into policy. And that policy was, creating a safety net at schools for students and staff and families, just that whole community of care, because we know that education goes beyond instruction. So I think with just it's a very strong personality, I will admit, but it's a very open and caring personality too, right? So just me as a person was able to tap into like all these different areas within the state, whether it was equity, whether it was in supporting the lowest performing schools, whether it was building policy, whether it was speaking up on behalf of the voices that are often, not heard. It was an open space for me to do so. I know at times you might have seen my frustration, and my frustration still exists today. It's just in a different, place. I'm no longer at the state. So that frustration hasn't gone because the issues still exist. But I would say, yes, it is something I always wanted to do. However, I didn't necessarily know as a little Black girl how to get there.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Look, it's my commercial. We will be right back.
It's more than just a bad hair day. It's a journey. Finding the right hairstyle isn't easy, nor is finding the right stylist or the right products. Looking in every corner of the web gets messy, overwhelming, and exhausting. All the ads, the articles, the products, the videos. It shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And now, it isn't. The chair. A black and brown centered platform where you can design hairboards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a new, joyful path on your hair journey. Avoid the clutter, save yourself hours, months, and even years of research and poor trial and error. Everything you need and only what you need is in one place. Hairboards made by people like you, for you. Find the right products, the right people, the right answers for you, stress-free. Join the chair. Community and make every day a great hair day. When you share your pain, you allow others to help you. And when you share your success, you help others get theirs. Lean on the chair. We got you. No stress, no strife. In the chair. The chair. The chair. All right.
So help me understand something, because this is something I think about all the time. So when I met you, I was like, man, she's doing so many things that I can see myself doing. Like your path, for me, it felt like a spider web. And that's what my education career looked like. And I was like, okay, so I can see someone else who didn't just go teacher, assistant principal, state. Someone who like, I'm doing a little bit of consulting here. I'm doing a little bit of this here. I'm doing a little bit of this here. I still ended up at the state, and then I still ended up hanging out with the big like you were, your hands were in everything, because it felt like you were looking at different versions of the problem. And I'm like, yes, I need other educators like that. Did you feel like you were drawn to those different positions, or do you think you were pushed in certain ways, or you met some really cool mentors and you just followed behind them because you're like, I like what they're doing, I want to continue soaking up that energy?
That is a very great question. And I would say all of the above. I grew up in this way that, first of all, I'm not born here. I'm born in Barbados, so I'm an immigrant, right? So immigrant coming to the States, and my first experience, I kid you not, I do not forget. I attended a school called the Mather Schools, a neighborhood school in Dorchester. My first experience with testing that I remember is we were in this like back kind of like hallway, and two teachers were there testing me and talking major trash about me because I had an accent. So if they assumed an accent spoke to my intelligence, because when I tested out of the charts, it was first grade. So I tested like in the third grade or fourth grade or something like that. They lost their minds and tried to convince my mother to send me to another grade, which of course my mom said no. I know education has been instilled in me from the time I could possibly remember. I know that my way within education from a child to an adult has not been easy as a Black female. And I know that there are a lot of stereotypes that were pushed against me that could have stopped me from doing what I needed to do. But I also know that my dad, who was also one of my first teachers, was very much a philosopher. So he would make me think about things deeply. So in the context of how did I get there, it's no wonder I'm there, because in all those spaces, because I'm really curious. I've been curious my whole life. But when you do enter those spaces and you enter with a purpose, but yet still an open mind. So I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot. I do have a lot because of my experiences, but I don't have all of them. And I'm willing to hear your answer, and I'm willing to broaden my perspective. People tend to want you in those spaces. And while you're in those spaces, you meet great people, and then you meet some not so great people, but you also meet great people that are like, you know what? I want to hang out with you, and mentorships begin. And those mentorships that are fostered in a way where people push me, right, to be a better person, because that's something I push myself to do. I think I gravitate towards that a lot, and it just makes me yearn for more. So my track on one side was education, and it was pretty traditional, right? Because that's the expectation, especially in Massachusetts, that you go this traditional route. And my ego was part of that traditional route. I'm going to go to college, and I'll be a teacher, and I'll be an assistant principal, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then I'll be a principal, and then I'll be a superintendent. And I got my superintendent's license pretty early, 2008, and never became a superintendent, because when I was a principal, I realized that it was too much politics. Oh, I got to do what you're telling me to do and not the right thing. But I'm in this for kids, and not just the ones I gave birth to, but the kid in me. You know what I'm saying? And all the kids that I have around here in my school, and I'm here for the community. And it's very difficult to be that person that wants to do all of that through the lens that I operate through, and still answer to the powers that be the way that they want me to answer. So I skipped the superintendency, which was a dream my whole life, and ended up at the state. And once I went to the state, I recognized I'm not a person that's going to do institution well. I need to go into one of these other little areas I had with consulting and really try to work for myself so I could one day support the state in a way that makes sense to both them and I. Because there's this funny saying, and I'm not sure where I got it from, but it says, when you are, think about a picture. So, right,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the frame, you can't see the picture. You actually have to be out of the frame to see the picture.
Mm.
So I knew one day I'd be able to go back to the state and support them because I do believe in what they're doing. I just know that there weren't enough people willing to speak their truth, whether it was, I don't understand the way the world is going right now, or I do understand the way the world is going right now because of that heightened expectation for organization. So that has always led me, not just in the state, but in other areas of professional areas of my life, has always led me to consult and just be myself and be my little butterfly self and fly around and hop around and socialize and learn and support and help and heal.
I think my brain was on fire the entire time I was at the state, because being an educator and then going to the state, I had these expectations about, okay, the state, they're making these policies, that this is how they're supposed to support the kids. I get into the state as an intern and realize that people didn't think that they had as much power as they did. And really learning how people said, oh, I can't do this because they won't listen to me. And in my mind, I'm like, wait, you're the state. No, you are the state. You are the top of this chain, that everything that comes through here, then everybody has to have these conversations and they start up here. But the fact that there were so many conversations I was having where people didn't see themselves as powerful, I thought was just absolutely crazy to me, because I was like, oh, so we have to not only be able to be like, hey, y'all are not listening to children enough, y'all are not like in spaces with kids enough and reminded with the voices that you're supposed to protect, but also when you're around other adults, you don't see yourself as powerful and your voice is loud enough. And so when I saw you, I was like, she knows that she has power. She knows that her voice is necessary. And for me, I gravitate to people like that. And so I was like truly like excited to get to know you. You said something earlier that I'm really interested in, where you said that when you meet people and they challenge you to be better, different educators, I'm wondering if you have a memory of someone who challenged you as an educator and you grew from that.
Yeah, but you'll probably have to ask me that question again, because I wanted to,
Yeah.
before we go there, actually respond to something you said that made me different while I was in the state. I think that in the state, you have to understand the state, right? And who they are. So for me, even when I heard people say, well, they wouldn't lie, I never knew who they were.
Me neither.
So who is they? They were never.
Yes, same.
That was like,
same.
Who is they?
I was like it's a ghost.
Real, who is they?
The ghost.
You know?
The ghost is there.
So it always interests me to figure out the they. And what I realized is they did not know who the they were. The they was the fear within inside of them. That was their own fear. And what I recognized in working for the state was it wasn't the highest. The federal government, feds and education are the highest. So they develop a lot of the rules and the funding that goes down to the states. And once you get to the state, they are compliance driven, right? They do not have the jurisdiction to go into a district unless they have taken over the district. And then there's new laws saying that's not going to happen anymore. But they don't have the jurisdiction to go into a district and say, you do this or else. All they can say is, we recommend, we highly feel you should consider, and they can sanction through withdrawing money and things like that, right? So once I was able to recognize that, I recognized that I did have power as an individual working for the state, because I understood money, and I understood that if I have this power and you don't want to do what you need to do, there's a way that you get less money. So therefore, I started attacking policies that were attached to money, trying to enforce different districts to really work with students and families in a way that was conducive to all students learning, especially students who were BIPOC, especially students with disabilities, especially students who were suffering because of how they identified through their sexual orientation. Like those were the things, gender, everything. Like that's where I started to come in. So I designed my purpose with the state. Like I knew what my job was. As long as I did my job, I'm cool. But now I could go above and beyond and say, well, this is the piece that I'm going to study. This is the piece that I'm going to be interested in. You want this money? Then this is what you're going to have to do. And if you don't do it, you can't have the money because school districts cannot operate without money. So that was the critical piece of understanding the state. They're there to be compliant to the federal government and ensure that, you know, districts understand certain things and operate a way. But because they don't have certain jurisdictions legally, they can't force the districts to do a lot of things that we necessarily want. You got to do this. Impossible. So that way it allowed me to give the state, quote unquote, grace and understand that the they, quote unquote, was really the power within me and not the power outside of me.
Oh, and if you're interested to learn more about my experiences as a Black woman and educator in Guangzhou, China, I wrote my first ebook titled Nowhere and Everywhere, Captured Emotions of a Beautifully Broken Love Story. It is on lulu.com. Take a read and see some beautiful photography of mine. Enjoy the rest of the show. When I started my internship with the state, again, it was only supposed to be 3 months, and then it got extended to a year. And people at my business school were like, well, you're an intern. What can you do? Like, what type of change can you do? And I think that line, for me, it was more of, I'm an intern. This is the perfect time where I wasn't just like an intern who just came out of high school or an intern who had no experience in education. I was like, I had almost, by that time, almost a decade of experience in education. I'm on my third degree. So like my intern, like I'm an intern, but the intern label wasn't a baby, right? And so being able to ask questions in the meeting, and they're like, people were like, who is this Black woman? Who is this intern? Who is she? Right? So then I'm like, hey, I have a thought, or hey, I will volunteer for this. Hey, I can facilitate this, because I'm like, I have no allegiance except for the kids that I'm thinking about, that I think about every day.
That's right.
I have no they that I'm thinking about. The only person I have to report to was my supervisor. And she was like, I like what you're doing. So I was like, I'm going to continue this. Right. So being able to have the pushback, people are like, well, like one of my coworkers was like, well, Dreme, you look like you have no fear when you're asking questions. Because I'm like, for me, questions, I'm not asking questions out of fear. I'm asking questions out of curiosity. I also really am just trying to understand. Like, I want to know why you think the way you think, why you decided this policy needs to be written this way instead of the way I suggested. Tell me why. Like, tell me why that you are allocating more funding in this direction instead of this one, right? Like, these are the questions that I wanted to know, because I just didn't understand.
Yeah, it's just another system where systems may not be designed transparently for everyone to understand.
Yeah.
But once you get it, then you can really rock within the system. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's I just was like, I'm gonna understand this system, because y'all play too much with me. You know, I'm gonna get this system, and when I get it, I'm going to make it like you are paying me not to be paying me. You're paying me to support students, schools, you know, teachers, principals, superintendents, and families, communities in the Commonwealth, right? That's what you're paying me to do. So when I'm not doing that, let's have a conversation. But as long as I'm doing that, leave me alone. You know, and that was my, everyone knew that was Cindy's attitude. You know what I mean? Like, that was my attitude. So I never really had to cross a line I was able to be very clear in my statements. I was able to provide evidence every time I spoke. And I was able to understand what was taking place in the room when I spoke or before I even began speaking. So those were the things that were important to me. So I didn't feel like I was in a job where I needed to survive, but I was in a job where I could, provide purpose. I think some of those questions that you might have been asked came out of fear, people's fear. Like, what are you really about to uproot? And after you leave, who will be left with that work to do and not necessarily know because it wasn't their idea, it was yours. So I get it and I understand it. And for me, it's a lot about understanding. But I see the state today and I'm so happy for where they're going with equity. I'm so happy for where they're going with leadership, literacy. Like, I almost was like, wow, I wonder if I stayed longer, what would have happened? But at the same time, I'm such in a great place. I'm in such a great place. I'm happy to be where I am, and I'm happy that the state has evolved in such a short time from where I left them, like with this word called equity, to really getting to the point where they're actionably looking for things in classrooms and providing the professional development and the skill sets necessary, the tools necessary for teachers and principals and other leadership administrators and even families and students to support what's going on in schools around the Commonwealth and really, really, really possibly finally close the achievement gap.
So, thinking about something you said previously about like meeting other educators who challenge you to grow, I'm wondering if you have a story of a time when you can remember that you're like, okay, I'm a better educator after this moment.
Of course I do. And I ended up working with two of them at the state. So Teresa Harvey Jackson and Cassell Walker, too. And they have two total different personalities. My mother was very tough and strong and said what she had to say, laid on the line or whatever. So I automatically gravitated toward Teresa. I'm like, word, she's my person in school. She is definitely it. She's my person in school. And Cassell, I ended up in a fellowship program in Boston called Boston Principal Fellows. And she was the department leader of that program. And we butt heads like crazy because you saw how I was. I'm like, I say what I got to say. And Cassell's more like, no, you do not have to say what you got to say. You can shut your mouth, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to shut my mouth. So Teresa was like, say what you got to say. And that's that. And Cassell was like, no, you don't have to say anything. So really, I was at the Marshall with Teresa and interning. I left that position to go intern at another school and do Cassell's program, ironically. And just living between those two worlds were so much of an oxymoron. It was difficult. But I think Teresa is someone that pushed me and continues to push me. Even in my business now, she pushes me a lot. I teach mindfulness and compassion classes. I just did one called The Science of Mindfulness and the Mathematical Wisdom of Buddhism, and she was my assistant teacher. So my teacher, my mentor, actually became my assistant teacher in this class because she does just loves how I move and, and allows me to go in any direction that makes me happy. She finds joy in that. And she always has. And then you have Cassell, I want to talk about while I was in the Boston Principal Fellowship program, butting heads with Cassell left and right. And one day we had what I'm going to call a coming to Jesus moment. Cassell sat down. She looked me in the eye. She says, listen, just like that. She's like, listen, I'm not here to give you what you want. I'm here to give you what you need. There are a lot of people around here that always give you what you want because you are spoiled. But I am here to make sure when you leave this program, you have what you need. I'm not here for what you want. I'm here for what you need. And I remember being so upset with her for telling me that. Like, who are you to be talking to me like that, right? Like, that was my attitude. This was like in 2009, right? Mind you, it came about because I was doing an internship at one It was like a school that everyone was like, oh, this is a school you want to intern at. And I got that internship and hated it. I was like, I want out. She's a liar. I don't want anything to do with it. My integrity, right? And because I was like, whoa, you're like politically set up to do the right thing and you just keep messing yourself up. So anyhow, I got out of that school because I kicked and I fussed and whatever the case might be. But today I'm able to say, even with my biological children, I have Teresa and Cassell in me where I'm like encouraging them to flourish and grow and live your best life and try new things and give you the truth. And it doesn't have to be sugar-coated. I also am very clear with I'm here to give you what you need. That's my motherly job and not always what you want. So if I can give you what you want, then kudos to us for accomplishing that. But if I can't, you're going to always have what you need. And that was not instilled in me, ironically, from my mother, who was very strong as well. And she leaves a lot of values with me, or my dad or my grandmother. But that was instilled in me from Cassell. So I found myself in this class this summer saying it to my students. At the end of the day, it is not all about outcomes. I don't really care about that syllabus as much as you care about that syllabus. What I care about is the impact in the process, right? And I'm not here to just give you what you want, which is that A, an outcome. Consider yourself with an A. I'm here to also give you what you need. So when you get into those schools and you do have issues, you can address them with integrity and remain a whole human during the process. That comes from Cassell.
That warms my heart. Like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
it took us a very long time to get to the point. I think the Desi job actually allowed Cassell and I to begin to bond again, because for years it was like, no, that woman didn't talk to me like she crazy. You know what I'm saying? But the Desi job gave me a different level of respect for both sides of the coin, the Teresa side and the Cassell side.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much for sharing your stories in the chair. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me.
You're welcome anytime. If you ever need anything, just holler. You know what it is.
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story.
Thank you for listening to an episode of The Chair. I, of course, would love your continued support. Let me know what you think of this episode by doing all the things. Subscribe, comment, and come back next week, every week. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. Or if you are like me, enjoy that moonlight and that one star under all your city lights. Love you. Talk to you later.
The chair.
How long I gotta wait for a person to record?
Go.
We support her. Shit.
Do your...
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dreme always has a story. Where we share stories in the chair.